Welcome to Revenge by Eve. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story.
I was standing in the doorway of our bedroom watching my husband of 6 years kiss my sister, and instead of screaming, I smiled, pulled out my phone, and started recording. Before this story goes any further, tell me, would you have confronted them immediately or done what I did? And as you listen, comment where you're listening from. I read everyone. My name is Eve Richardson, and I used to believe that loving someone completely meant they'd never hurt you. I met Daniel when I was 25, working as a dental hygienist in Portland, Oregon. He was 28, a loan officer at a credit union, and he came in for a routine cleaning. I remember thinking he had kind eyes and a warm smile. He asked me out before he left, scribbling his number on the back of his appointment card. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. We talked for 4 hours straight until the staff started stacking chairs around us. Daniel was attentive in a way I'd never experienced. He asked real questions and actually listened to my answers. He wanted to know about my family, my dreams, what made me laugh. I'd grown up in a complicated household. My father left when I was 12, leaving my mother to raise me and my younger sister, Melissa. Mum worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I learned early to be independent, responsible, the one who held things together. Melissa was different. 5 years younger, more fragile somehow, always needing protection. When I introduced Daniel to my family 6 months into our relationship, he charmed everyone. My mother adored him immediately. Finally, someone stable, she said. Even Melissa, who was usually shy around strangers, opened up to him. Daniel proposed after we'd been together for 2 years. We got married in a small ceremony at my mother's church with close family and friends. The wedding wasn't elaborate. We paid for it ourselves, keeping it simple and meaningful. Daniel looked at me during our vows like I was the only person in the world. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. I'd spend weekends painting rooms while Daniel worked on the yard. We'd have friends over for barbecues, take weekend trips to the coast, talk about eventually having kids. Daniel was supportive of my career when I decided to go back to school for dental hygiene management certification. He'd quiz me before exams, bring me coffee during late-night study sessions, tell me how proud he was of my ambition. "You're going to be amazing," he'd say. "You're the smartest person I know." I trusted him completely. The kind of trust where you don't check phones or question late nights at work, the kind where you share bank accounts and plan retirement together. My sister Melissa struggled more. She'd dropped out of college twice, couldn't hold jobs for long, lived with our mother well into her 20s. I tried to help her, finding her job opportunities, letting her stay with us occasionally when things got rough. Daniel never complained, even when Melissa's visits stretched from weekends to weeks. "Family helps family," he'd say. "She'll find her way." I loved him for that generosity, for seeing the best in people, including my troubled little sister. Our life felt stable, secure. We had routines. Wednesday night dinners with my mom, Saturday morning farmers market visits, Sunday evening Netflix marathons. It was ordinary in the best possible way. Looking back now, I can see I was building a life while missing all the cracks forming in its foundation. The first warning sign came about 4 years into our marriage, though I didn't recognize it then. Daniel started working later. Not every night, but 2 or 3 times a week he'd text, saying he was stuck finishing loan applications or meeting with difficult clients. "Don't wait up," the messages would say. "I'll grab something on the way home." I'd fall asleep alone and wake up with him already beside me, exhausted. When I'd ask about his night, he'd give vague answers about paperwork and deadlines. Around the same time, Melissa moved back in with us. She'd lost another job and another apartment, and my mother called asking if we could help. "Just until she gets on her feet," Mum said. "Please, Eve, I don't know what else to do." Daniel agreed without hesitation. "Of course she can stay. She's family." Melissa set up in our guest room. The first few weeks were fine. She'd job hunt during the day, help with dinner, stay out of the way. But gradually she became more present in our lives. She'd be there when I got home from work, chatting with Daniel about his day. She'd suggest movies for our Sunday evenings, slowly inserting herself into our routines. "It's nice having someone home during the day," Daniel mentioned once. "The house feels less empty." I felt a small twist of something, jealousy, discomfort, but I pushed it down. Melissa was my sister. This was temporary. But then I started noticing small things. The way Daniel would laugh differently around Melissa, louder, more animated. The way he'd ask her opinion on things he used to ask me about. "Melissa, what do you think of this paint colour?" he'd say, showing her samples for our bathroom remodel, a project we'd been planning together. When I'd express an opinion, he'd nod absently. When Melissa spoke, he'd lean in, really listen. I tried to rationalise it. He was being kind to my sister, making her feel welcome. There was nothing wrong with that. But the late work nights increased, and I noticed he was showering and changing clothes when he got home, even on nights when he claimed to have been sitting at a desk all evening. "Why are you showering at midnight?" I asked once. "I went to the gym after work. Arn needed to blow off steam." He'd never mentioned joining a gym. I also started finding small inconsistencies. He'd say he was meeting a client, but when I'd ask about it later, he couldn't remember details. Or he'd mention grabbing dinner, but there'd be no charges on our joint credit card. "I used cash," he'd explain. Always a reasonable answer. Always just believable enough. Melissa was around more and more. She'd postpone job interviews, claim she wasn't feeling well enough to apartment hunt. She'd wear my clothes without asking, use my makeup, borrow money she never paid back. "Just $20 until my unemployment check comes in," she'd say. It was always just this or that, and Daniel would defend her. "She's trying, Eve. Give her a break." I felt like the mean one, the unsupportive sister, and the wife who couldn't be generous to family. Things escalated over the next year in ways that made me question my own perceptions. Daniel started being critical of me in small ways. He'd comment that I'd gained weight, though I hadn't. He'd suggest I dress differently, wear my hair down instead of up, put on more makeup. "I'm just trying to help you look your best," he'd say when I'd protest. Meanwhile, he'd compliment Melissa constantly. "That colour looks great on you." "You should wear your hair like that more often." "You've got such a good sense of style." I'd be standing right there, watching my husband praise my sister for things he criticised in me. Our sex life diminished. Daniel was always too tired, too stressed, too distracted. When I'd try to initiate, he'd yawn and say we'd do it tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. "Are we okay?" I asked him one night after 3 weeks without intimacy. "We're fine. I'm just exhausted from work." But he didn't seem exhausted around Melissa. They'd stay up late watching movies after I went to bed. I'd hear them laughing through the walls of our bedroom. I also started noticing that items in our house were being moved. My favourite coffee mug would be in different cabinets. The thermostat would be set to temperatures I hadn't chosen. Small things that made me feel like I was losing control of my own space. "Did you move my mug?" I'd ask. "I don't think so," Daniel would say. "Maybe Melissa used it." "Did you adjust the temperature?" "It was cold." "What's the big deal?" Every question made me feel petty. Every concern was dismissed as me being uptight or controlling. I confided in my mother about feeling uncomfortable with how long Melissa had been staying. "She's your sister, Eve. She's struggling. You of all people should understand family loyalty." Everyone made me feel like the problem. Like I was selfish for wanting my own space, paranoid for noticing changes in my husband's behaviour. I started doubting myself constantly. Was I imagining the distance between Daniel and me? Was I being unreasonable about Melissa? Was I the common denominator in all this dysfunction? One night I came home early from work and heard laughter from upstairs. Daniel's car was in the driveway, though he'd said he'd be working late. I found him and Melissa in our home office, sitting close together at the computer, looking at something that made them both smile. They jumped apart when I walked in. "You're home early," Daniel said, his face flushing. "I texted you an hour ago that I'd be home by 5. "I didn't see it. We were just looking at job listings for Melissa." But the computer screen showed a YouTube video, not job sites. Right, I said. Job listings. The atmosphere in the house was becoming toxic. I felt like a stranger in my own home, an outsider to inside jokes between my husband and my sister. I suggested Melissa should start looking for her own place seriously. She's not ready, Daniel said. Don't push her. She's fragile. She's been here 14 months. This was supposed to be temporary. Family is never temporary, Eve. The way he said it felt like an accusation, like I was betraying some sacred code by wanting my house back. The core betrayal happened on a Thursday evening in late September. I'd left work early because I had a migraine. I texted Daniel but got no response. His car was in our driveway when I pulled up, which was unusual for 3 in the afternoon. I walked into our house quietly, head pounding, just wanting to lie down in a dark room. I heard sounds from upstairs, voices, low and intimate. I walked up the stairs, my heart starting to race. The sounds were coming from our bedroom. The door was slightly open, and there they were, Daniel and Melissa, in our bed, our marriage bed where we'd made vows about forever. They were kissing, his hands in her hair, her hands on his chest, not frantic or guilty, comfortable, familiar, like they'd done this before, many times before. I stood in the doorway, frozen. My brain couldn't process what my eyes were seeing. Then something clicked. Some survival instinct. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, started recording. They didn't see me. They were too absorbed in each other. I got 30 seconds of clear footage before I stepped back, walked downstairs and left the house. I sat in my car, shaking so violently I couldn't turn the key. My vision was blurring. My chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed my heart. The migraine was gone. In its place was a pain, so much worse, the physical sensation of betrayal, like my body was rejecting this new reality. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I was beyond tears. I was somewhere else entirely. I drove to a coffee shop and sat in my car in the parking lot, watching the video again and again, making sure it was real, that I wasn't hallucinating. It was real. My husband and my sister, the 2 people I'd loved most, the 2 people I'd trusted completely. I should have seen it. The late nights, the defensiveness, the way he looked at her, the way she moved into our lives and never left. How long had this been going on? Months? A year? Since she moved in? Had they been laughing at me, pitying me, thinking I was too stupid to notice? I sat in that parking lot for 3 hours, until my phone started ringing with calls from Daniel. 5 calls, 6, 7. I didn't answer. Finally a text. Where are you? We need to talk. We, like he was the reasonable one, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I drove to a motel, checked in, lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. And that's when I made my decision. That was the moment I stopped waiting for them to change. I didn't go home that night, or the next night. I called in sick to work, I claiming a family emergency. I lay in that motel room for 2 days and I planned. Daniel kept calling, texting, "Please come home, let me explain." Melissa sent messages too. "I'm so sorry, it just happened. Please talk to me." It just happened, like they'd tripped and fallen into bed together. I didn't respond to either of them. Instead, I consulted with a divorce attorney, a woman named Patricia who specialized in infidelity cases. "I have video evidence," I told her, showing her the recording. She watched it, her face impassive. "This is clear adultery. In Oregon, it doesn't affect property division, but it does affect public perception, which can be useful." "I want everything," I said. "I want the house, the savings, everything we built together. We can fight for that, but you need to be strategic." I also hired a private investigator to find out exactly how long this had been going on. Within 3 days, he had answers. 9 months. The affair had been going on for 9 months, since 2 months after Melissa moved in. The investigator had credit card receipts from a hotel they'd visited 6 times. During hours when Daniel was supposedly working late, he had photos of them meeting at restaurants, at a park, looking at apartments together, looking at apartments. They'd been planning a future, planning to leave me, to start a life together, my husband and my sister. I spent a week gathering evidence, planning my approach, making sure every detail was covered. I opened a separate bank account and transferred half our savings, my legal right under Oregon law. I contacted our landlord about our house. We'd been renting with the option to buy, and I'd been the one communicating with him, making the payments, managing the property. I explained the situation and asked if he'd be willing to lease to me alone. "I'm sorry to hear about your marriage," he said. "Yes, I'd be happy to have you as the tenant." Daniel's name was only on the lease as a courtesy. I packed my important documents, my grandmother's jewellery, my personal items, everything that mattered to me. And then I went home. I walked into the house on a Sunday evening. Daniel and Melissa were in the living room looking nervous. "Eve," Daniel stood up, "thank God, we need to talk." "Yes," I said calmly, "we do." They looked relieved, like I was going to be reasonable about this. "It's not what you think," Melissa started. "Really?" "Oh, because I think I walked in on you fucking my husband in my bed." "What is it then?" They both flinched at the language. "It's complicated," Daniel said. "Is it?" Explain the complication. They looked at each other, a silent communication between people who shared secrets. "We fell in love," Melissa said quietly. "I didn't mean for it to happen. Neither of us did." "How long?" Silence. "How long?" 9 months, Daniel admitted. 9 months of lying, of making me feel crazy, of sleeping next to me while sleeping with my sister. "I want you both out of this house by tomorrow," I said. "Eve, this is my house too," Daniel started. "Actually, it's not. Check the lease. I'm the primary tenant. You're listed as a spouse, which I can remove. I spoke to the landlord. You have 24 hours. "You can't do that." "I can, and I am. I've also filed for divorce. You'll be served papers tomorrow." "Eve, please," Melissa was crying now. "Can't we talk about this?" "Talk about what? How you fucked my husband for 9 months while living in my house, eating my food, taking my money. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, repeatedly. For 9 months. I pulled out my phone and showed them the video I'd recorded. Their faces went white. "I have this. I have credit card receipts. I have photos from a private investigator. I have everything I need to prove what you've done." "What are you going to do with that?" Daniel's voice was shaking now. "That depends on you." The payoff came in pieces, each one satisfying in its own way. First, I sent the video to my mother. No explanation. Just the video. She called within 5 minutes, sobbing. How could she? How could they? "I don't know, Mom. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." My mother, who'd been pushing me to be more understanding of Melissa, saw exactly what her younger daughter was. I also sent copies to Daniel's parents, people who'd welcomed me into their family, who I'd spent holidays with, who'd told me I was the daughter they'd always wanted. His mother called, crying. "We had no idea. If we'd known—" "I know. Thank you." Daniel's father was less emotional. "What do you need from us?" "Nothing. I just wanted you to know who your son is." The divorce proceedings were swift. With clear evidence of adultery and Daniel's willingness to settle quickly to avoid more exposure, we reached an agreement in 6 weeks. I got the house buyout. We'd been paying toward ownership, and I got credit for all those payments. I got half of all savings and retirement accounts. I got my car. I got everything I'd brought into the marriage, plus half of what we'd built. Daniel got his car and his personal belongings. Melissa, she got evicted from my house on day 1. She tried to stay with our mother, who refused. "You don't betray family like this," Mom said. "Figure it out yourself." Melissa ended up moving in with Daniel. They got a small apartment across town. I heard through mutual friends that their relationship was already struggling. Turns out when an affair becomes a real relationship, it loses its excitement. Daniel got fired from his job. Someone, I never found out who, sent the video to his employer. They had a morality clause in their employment contracts. He was let go. He struggled to find work after that. His reputation in our small professional community was destroyed. Melissa couldn't find work either. Our mother had been the one getting her interviews through her church connections. Mum cut her off. My friends rallied around me. People I'd worried would judge me instead judged them. Daniel's own brother stopped speaking to him. What you did to Eve is unforgivable. The life they'd been planning together, the one they'd been looking at apartments for, fell apart under the weight of reality and consequences. Within 6 months, they broke up. The affair that had cost them everything ended with Melissa moving to another state and Daniel living with roommates at 34 years old. I ran into Daniel once about a year later at a grocery store. He looked tired, older, diminished. "Eve," he said, "and can we talk?" "No, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry." "You're right. It doesn't mean anything. I destroyed everything, didn't I?" I looked at him. This man I'd loved completely, who I'd trusted with my whole heart. "Yes, you did." I walked away. 3 years later, I'm 34 and building a life I never imagined. I bought the house outright, used the divorce settlement and my savings. It's mine now, completely. I finished my certification and got promoted to office manager at my dental practice. I make good money doing work I enjoy with people I respect. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected, made new ones, built a support system that isn't dependent on romantic relationships or family obligation. I've dated. Nothing serious yet, but I'm open to it. I'm learning to trust again. Slowly, carefully. My relationship with my mother improved. She apologized repeatedly for not seeing what was happening, for defending Melissa, for making me feel like I was the problem. "I failed you," she said. "I'm so sorry." I forgave her. Parents aren't perfect. She was trying to help both her daughters and chose wrong. But she owned it and changed. Melissa tried to reach out once. A long email about how sorry she was, how she'd been in a dark place, how she hoped we could rebuild. I never responded. Some betrayals are too fundamental to forgive. She didn't just sleep with my husband. She lived in my house, ate my food, took my money, looked me in the eye every day while destroying my marriage. That's not a mistake. That's a character flaw. Daniel occasionally sends messages on my birthday or holidays. Short, apologetic, hoping for what? Forgiveness? Of friendship? I delete them without reading past the first line. I don't hate him anymore. Hate requires too much energy, too much continued investment. I just don't care. The man I loved completely was a fiction, a performance he gave for 6 years until something shinier caught his attention, and he paid for betraying me. Not because I destroyed him, though I could have done worse, but because I refused to protect him from the consequences of his choices. I let the truth be known. I let people see who he really was, and that destroyed him more than any revenge I could have planned. If you were in my place, what would you have done differently? And don't forget to tell me, where are you listening from right now? This is Revenge by Eve, and your voice matters here.
Thanks for watching Revenge by Eve. Until next time, relax and see you soon.